We will start with the broadcast section with no embargo, followed by an embargoed section. No live tweeting during the broadcast section, please, and use the microphone provided. Michael.
Only the true believers in today, yeah? Nice and intimate. Go on.
You right?
Yeah, I'm good. Good, thanks, Michael. Yeah, pretty much no different to the last game. Everyone got through the game unscathed, so yeah, no real change. Everyone's good.
That's good news. 160 goals and counting for Sol. I know you mentioned in post-match, but just watching him again, the influence he has. Obviously, with Hugo Lloris leaving, Harry Kane leaving, you lost two big leaders. And I know you had leaders in the dressing room as well, but how much of a big decision was it to make him club captain? It clearly works. He's such a huge influence.
Yeah, it wasn't a big decision to make him the captain. Obviously, it was a big decision who the next sort of leader was going to be. Because, as you said, with obviously Hugo being such a huge influence in recent years, and obviously Harry as well, and even people like Eric Dyer and others who have been at the club for a long time, it was obviously going to be a key decision in terms of the direction we wanted to go. And part of, as I said all along, is I felt like we needed to make a change, in most things we were doing, just to show we're going in a direction. And it could have been very easy for me to think that Sonny's, probably not the change you need because he's been so influential. But I just felt he was such a natural fit. He'd obviously been a leader within his national team, and I had no hesitation in sort of putting him in that position. But it's fair to say he's been outstanding, because sometimes when you sort of get the official title, it can weigh heavily. You feel a bigger burden when you're out there. But his performances this year have been outstanding, and if anything, I think it's taken him to a new level.
And James Maddison, obviously, been a great signing, but maybe hasn't hit the heights from the start of the season, which is understandable. It was a big injury. With him, and not just him, the Spurs maybe need, it's a quick turnaround tomorrow, but maybe that can be a good thing sometimes because of the lack of too many cup games, no Europe. Maybe someone like Maddison and maybe others need those quick turnaround matches.
Yeah, look, potentially. I think with Matters, I think we've had a few in that, but probably us as a team. I've said before, it's felt like a bit of a stuttering campaign. We've never really got into any sort of flow, probably apart from maybe the first 10 games, but that's part of the challenge, and whether that's Matters or other players who kind of, very few have had a sort of clean run at it all year. That's a challenge before us now with 9 games to go, is to try and finish the season strong, and a good challenge tomorrow night against a very good team.
Timo Werner, maybe he thinks he probably should have scored in the first half. I like what I was seeing with him and Brennan Johnson on the other side. How pleased have you been with Timo Werner since he's come in? Do you think there's more to come? And then is it still, we'll discuss his future at the end of the season? Yeah,
look, in terms of his future, I think, like most players, all these decisions will be made at the appropriate time. But look, I think it's been great for us. It was an important signing, I said at the time, because people forget that when we signed him, Sonny wasn't here. He was away with the Asian Cup, and then Richie got injured. So we would have had a massive hole in our lineup without Timo there. And it's fair to say he's made an impact in just about every game. He'd probably like a couple more goals, but I think at the same time he's an important part, of our structure. And I thought he was really good on the weekend, and it has been the last few games. And but I do think there's more improvement in him as he understands more around our game model.
Niv?
Obviously, Luton and West Ham, they present a different challenge. But what, as a collective, what type of improvement do you want to see out of a big derby tomorrow night?
I don't think it's improvement. I just think it's further kind of development of our game model and getting some consistency in some of the things we do. As I said, it's been a very disruptive season, and I guess the positive for us at the moment is that we've got mostly a clean bill of health in terms of the players available. And on the weekend it was really good to see that not just the starters, the guys who come on made a real impact for us, and it's something we haven't been able to do sort of the middle and early part of the year. So it's just a further improvement for us always.
I want to ask you, please, about Brennan Johnson and his impact on the second half. Not for the first time this season, you brought him up and he got the job done. Brought pace, brought energy to the team.
Yeah, no, it was. Brennan was super on the weekend, and look, he's another one. He's still young. He's still developing. He's moved to a big club where there's big expectations when you have a big transfer fee. But for the most part, I think he's handled it really well. He started the 2 games before he came off the bench, and he did really well against Villa. Wasn't great against Fulham, but most of the team wasn't great against Fulham. And then this one came again off the bench and made an impact. But I think again he's another one that's understanding more and more sort of how we want him to play, and he's adjusting to it. But like I said, I think for the most part he's handled himself really well this year. It was always going to be like I said, a tough sort of introduction when you're a young player. With a big transfer fee, moving to a big club, and I think it's always harder with attacking players because usually they just measure them on one thing, and that is goals or assists. But I think he's contributing in more than just that.
I want to ask you about the top 4 race, the challenge. Obviously, Aston Villa, yourself, Man United as well. There is 8-point gaps between you and United. Can you still see them challenge you? It's a big gap, and also they've been so inconsistent as well.
I don't know. I mean. Do you see us challenging Manchester City? No? Well, they're only 8 points ahead of us. So if you don't see us Manchester,
I think you've been more consistent in Man United.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So there's 8 points. So you either think we can catch Man City or 8 points ahead of us, or you think Man United can catch us. I mean, to me, it's all irrelevant. Like I said, what's important for me is that I've said quite a few times is that we want to finish the season strong and keep building on the foundation of being a team that hopefully in 12 months' time people are looking at us differently and talking about us differently. And to do that, it can't just be about where you finish or how many points you get. It's got to be more than that. But obviously, if we finish the season strong, we'll finish in a decent position, and we'll see where that takes us.
Ali, please.
Hi there, Ange. Obviously on Saturday you spoke a little bit about Dejan Kulusevski and why he came off and the cutting inside. Obviously people forget he's still very young as well. Do you see him always being a right winger, or can you see him maybe at some points being on the left because of his being more left-footed, or would he come deeper in his career? Where do you think kind of lies for him?
Well, I think he's played in every one of those positions you've mentioned this year. So, yeah, Decky, and look, I think in general we've got a really young group, and and that's what I keep saying is my role within that is to keep challenging them, pushing them to improve, because, if this is kind of the baseline for the majority of this group and we can get them to a new level, we're already competing, fairly well in this competition, and that's going to help us improve, So whether that's, Kulusevski or, Brennan Johnson or Van der Veen or Destiny or Pape or all these guys who, are in their very early 20s, is that, in their first or second year of the Premier League, then, that's our challenge as a club and as a coaching group to try and improve all of them. Positionally, then, we'll see where that develops. But like I said, Decky's filled all those positions for us this year and done a good job in just about every one of them.
Just wonder whether your kind of the tendency of your teams to play those dangerous balls right across the 6-yard box, whether maybe being a left-footed player, would that be something that would benefit him to be able to do that, or have you just got to train him to be able to do that on the right more regularly?
I think they can do that. I mean, Timo's not a left-footed player; he plays on the left-hand side. So I think what's more important for us is, like I said, is that we continue to challenge our players to develop them, try and improve them, and Decky and all those players I mentioned have got a real appetite for it. So, where they end up in terms of positionally, some of that will be dictated by where the team's at as well, and what we need.
Richarlison, can I check, how's he reacted after those few minutes? Is he in a position where he could start a game yet?
Yeah, no, he was much better after the game, and he felt a lot better. I trained yesterday. Got trained this afternoon. So, he feels good now.
Just want to ask you, on Timo Werner obviously being a successful signing, you've had a lot of successful signings since you've arrived, and then maybe that's coincided also with the club pushing towards a more database kind of recruitment between Johan Lang.
So it's not me, it's the data.
Yeah, no. All together,
Backhanded
all combined. Well, actually, the question was that something you kind of pushed for when you came in, was the database stuff?
No, look, I think every club has some sort of mechanism to identify players, and data plays a big part in that. And even before I was here, I still played a big part in kind of the recruitment here. It's sort of ultimately it comes down to then, what's the best fit. I think I've said before, there are very little sort of hidden gems anymore. I think if you ask for most clubs for a list of players they'd be targeting, depending on the financial constraints of the club, most of them would have similar players on it. I don't think there's any secrets. I think the key then becomes are they going to be a good fit for the club and for obviously the way you want to play, and I guess that's where my role comes in that, when you're looking at a list of players who I think is going to be the best fit.
Okay, we'll end the broadcast section there. We'll move on to the Embargoed section starting for 10:30 p.m. tonight. Adrian?
I wanted to ask you about comebacks. I think 22 points from losing position, you got to the second highest total in the Premier League. Clearly a trait of your team, your ability to do that. I wondered, how do you instill the qualities that are required to do that in this group of players?
I think it's something that's been consistent throughout my sort of coaching career. I think if you go back, right to the very start, most of my teams, all of my teams had that sort of trademark of kind of, being able to turn around results or winning games late. Part of that is just the actual game model itself, which, as simple as it sounds, when you're so committed to playing a certain way, the score almost becomes irrelevant. So, I think with a lot of teams, when they fall behind, they have to either change their approach or find a different approach, or when they're winning, they maybe change their approach. With us, whether we're winning or losing, we won't change our approach. So, when like we did on the weekend, when we concede, it's not like the team are then going, well, okay, what do we do now that we've conceded? We just keep going. And I think when there's that sort of clarity of purpose, it makes it easier for the players then to look for the solutions in just the way we play, rather than sort of looking for something that's not a constant in our game plan. And I think that helps them, because there's always a sense of a little bit of anxiety or desperation, particularly when you're getting late in games and you feel it in the stadium and the supporters, because they all want to win. That, how do you navigate that? And I think I've always felt the best way to navigate that is to have clarity about how we're going to go about it. And I think I've seen it with this group of players as well. That it doesn't. There isn't that sort of desperation when we're chasing a result. It's just, let's just keep doing what we've been doing.
And in terms of keeping your players calm in those situations where they do go behind, is it the sort of thing that they feed each other? Once you've done it once or twice, you know you can do it. So that becomes sort of part of the process. So again, because you can get affected by, invariably they'll look at the scoreboard and there's 86, 87 minutes, and you can get really anxious. But I don't think we try and instill in them not to worry about that. And sometimes it gets dismissed when we score a lot of late goals where we're already ahead as well, and people kind of dismiss that. But that's part of that process as well, is that you just keep going till, irrespective of the result. So even if you're winning comfortably, you go and try and score another goal rather than sort of shore up the game. But it's like I said, it's. I think it's a byproduct of kind of everything else I try and instill in the team in terms of the way we play. And like I said, it's kind of been a constant in my career. Just going back to what you said about Timo Werner, you mentioned you still see some improvement in him. And you touched on maybe it might be as he gets used to what you do here. But is there sort of an individual improvement you're trying to get out of him as well? And when it's a low spell after the season, how do you sort of work on the individual element?
Because we probably play a little bit differently. Obviously, he's always played in the kind of fairly, certainly at Leipzig and earlier in his career, in teams that were fairly aggressive anyway. And he's played in those wide areas. But there are sort of some more distinct things we do in terms of our wide players, but also just him getting used to the intensity of the way we train and the intensity in which we play. I think probably from a physical perspective, that's been his biggest sort of adjustment. And it's like all the other players we've sort of signed, it takes them a little while. Apart from the guys who came in right at the start of pre-season, even for somebody like Brennan, it's taken them a while to really get to that physical standpoint where they can, training is
they feel like they're getting stronger at training, and then that transfers to games. But like I said, it's a small window. But I think I've said before, even when I signed him, but I've done it with loan players before. I don't look at it as a 6-month deal. You kind of treat them like everyone else, and hopefully get improvement over a longer period.
Just lastly, you mentioned something earlier on about attacking players and then being judged with goals and assists, and it sounded like there are other things that you look for in judging your attacking players. Can you sort of expand on that? What are the other qualities you want beyond maybe like anyone sort of?
Well, yeah, it's no secret in our team. Part of sort of our big strength this year is our ability to really be aggressive in the way we sort of press other teams, and that starts with our attacking players. And that's where I think Sonny's been unbelievable for us this year. Even on the weekend, he kept harassing, kept chasing, and we've scored a lot of goals this year just by our front three really having an appetite to be our first form of defence, and we've won a lot of balls in that front third, of which invariably they're the beneficiaries of, because then they get their goals and assists. But that's a big part of it. You need somebody who's going to, apart from the goals and assists in a defensive sense, will be an instigator in that for us. And then there's some other stuff around sort of, some structural stuff that, it takes a little bit of getting used to, whether your player's a wide player or a central player. And, there's some finer details in there where, it can help us as a team, both in our build-up, how you can contribute to our build-up, and then also, like I said, in a defensive sense. So all those things. Look, there's no doubt you're playing the front third, you've got to score goals and make goals as well. That's still a big measure, obviously, for me as well. But, you need all these other things as well.
George?
You were so calm on the touchline. Is that how you feel inside? And if it is that sort of based on the evidence, I guess, of this season, you were down and Brighton down, that's where you've seen the team score the goals, so you know the process?
Well, no, not just this season. As I said before, it's 26 years of it, so you kind of know. And, I think if I want the players to be sort of clear-headed in that moment, it won't help if I'm jumping around and screaming my head off, It doesn't really... And it's not me anyway. It doesn't mean I don't internally, feel the anxiety and all those kind of things. But I've learnt that, as I said, over the course of my career, that in those moments, because I still, may be needed in those moments. We scored and we made a substitution straight away. I put Pierre on. So if I'm kind of running down the touchline just thinking we've scored and we've won, then I don't think I'm helping the team, But that doesn't mean internally I'm not running. Probably help me if I did it physically as well. But, I think, again, my role in that point of time, and again, it's just me. It's not. I think this is the way it should be. It's just me as a person. It's the best way I can deal with sort of what's happening, and I think that helps. And my role in that moment is try and help the players.
You mentioned Pierre, and you said sort of international duties, not happy for more minutes. Is there anything sort of more he can be doing to get more minutes?
No, he's doing all he can. I think he mentioned he's training well and he's presenting himself, and he's not happy. He hasn't played enough. I understand that. There's probably other players in there who are equally as unhappy who haven't been playing, but that's okay. I understand that they're human beings. What I look at is how they're training, what their attitude's like, and when presented with opportunity, are they ready to contribute? Pierre certainly has been, but as I said, there's others in that boat as well. They're all pushing each other, mate. There's no there's no individual competitions in there. It's about like I said, what I see every day, what I see during game time, and always makes these decisions with the ultimate sort of backdrop of what's going to be best for the team.
And it's West Ham tomorrow, and the kind of narrative around West Ham whenever they lose is how long they want to left. He's won a trophy that's been regularly in Europe, whereas he's been from the outside. Does it feel like he's sort of not appreciated as much as maybe he should be?
Yeah, probably. I think he's an outstanding manager. I rate him so highly. He's one of the ones I've always rated highly, not just because, longevity in the game means something, especially at this level. And, whether it was at Everton or the difficult job he had at Man U, You know, he went abroad. He's never stopped coaching, and I think he's done a brilliant job at West Ham. Anyone who thinks otherwise, I mean, the team they are today, and the players they've got there, they've got some high quality footballers in that team, and I think they're going to get better. People are questioning, but again, I guess it's a bit of sort of today's world we live in, where there's always a short term kind of reflex to everything that happens. But I've got no doubt he's one of the outstanding managers in the game.
Just following on from your answer to Niv, I mean, how do you see the gap to the top three at the moment? I mean, how kind of far away do you think you are from bridging that 8 to 10 points that it stands?
Well, I mean, you don't know. I mean, but ultimately, you don't want to discount that possibility. That's why I keep saying, like, if fourth's our ultimate goal, and we get fourth and we fall in, with 2 games to spare, what does that mean? We don't aspire to anything better than that. But where we sit at the moment, with 9 games to go, we've got some difficult fixtures in there, some challenging fixtures, but there's 9 games to go. Let's see where that takes us, and I'd much rather have that approach than having just one specific target of, look, it would probably make my life easier if I just said, you know what, if we make Champions League, it's great, because then everyone thinks I've done a great job. But from my perspective, I keep saying it, is that, I look at teams who made the Champions League this year from last year, and that wasn't a catalyst for them kicking on. And it's not their fault, because it's more demanding. But what I'm saying is, if you rest on just that, and I'm not going to let this club rest on just where we finish this year. Whatever we finish this year should be a foundation for us being better next year.
But just in terms of the bigger picture, obviously there are 3 clubs that have had way longer with their current managers than you've had here. You've talked about building the project. You said there, I think, in 12 months, I hope people are looking at us differently. I mean, do you expect to be in the title race in 12 months, for example?
I hope so, yeah. Otherwise, why am I doing what I'm doing? If I don't want to be, that's why I came to the club. They didn't bring me to the club. As somebody said to me last week, just do your job, Ange. And my job is to come here and try and bring success. And if you don't think you're going to be in the title race in 12 months' time, then I don't know why I'm here.
Who said that to you last week?
Oh, just a confidant a couple of confidants who straighten me up every time I wobble.
And can I just ask you about tickets?
Including my wife too, by the way. Very often, yeah.
And can I ask you about ticket price protest? That some fans turned their back in the 60th minute on Saturday and protested the seating concessions. There was a protest at City yesterday, a ban out in the stand as well. I mean, you've spoken a lot about your time at South Melbourne and how that felt like more of a club than a kind of sanctuary. I wondered if you think Premier League clubs in general are kind of losing that community element.
Yeah. Oh, look, don't kid yourself. We had plenty of protests at South Melbourne, mate, and they were just as vocal, if not more. So that's been a constant. And I think my constant position on this is that the fans have a voice, and they should be allowed to use that voice in any manner that they think is appropriate, as long as it's not disruptive, as long as it's not, to the detriment of kind of the club in an overall position. I was at Celtic, at the beginning of Celtic, and there was fan protests there, So, like I said, they have a voice, and I think we've seen in the past that, when fans feel strongly about something, they take the opportunity to do it.
While it's quiet, can I ask you a slightly offbeat one? There's a documentary about Pushgas in Australia that I've watched recently.
Okay.
Same with an Australian journalist. You were clear on it. You talked in here about how calm you are on the touchline, and kind of what comes across is Pushgas seemingly not really caring when you overload it back or make mistakes or concede goals. I mean, how much of an impression did he make on you? How much that influenced you where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in the grand final, which was the title decider, going to penalties, and he didn't even move from his seat. He was like, I've played in World Cup finals, I've seen it all, man. This is not pressure. And it does. It had an impression on me. But again, you can't fake that. That's got to be part of who you are. I can't, just because the great man was able to be so calm, on the bench doesn't mean that I'm going to be like him, because I'm not. It has to be part of your personality. But not much got him too rolled up either way, and it was part of the beauty of him as a man that he really boiled down things to pretty simple notion that boys, it's a game of football. That's all it is, and you're either going to win, you're going to lose, or you're going to draw. That's the reality of it. Don't make too much of it. Just enjoy it.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.